I can still taste the air from that morning. It didn't taste like victory. It tasted like sterile cotton and old upholstery. There is a specific frequency of silence that exists only in a car parked in a crowded lot. It's a vacuum. Outside, the world is vibrating. Car doors slamming, the muffled baritone of proud fathers, the high-pitched excitement of younger siblings, the rustle of synthetic gowns. But inside, my sedan, with the windows rolled up and the air conditioning humming its low, dead note, there was only the sound of my own blood rushing in my ears. And the phone. I held it against my ear until the plastic grew warm and slick against my skin. Ring. I stared through the windshield at the brick facade of the auditorium. Ring. I watched a family of 5 walk past. The father was adjusting the son's mortarboard, tilting it just so. The mother was laughing, a sound that penetrated the glass of my car like a physical blow. Ring. Hi, you've reached the voicemail of Robert Kaler. I can't come to the phone right now, but leave a message and I ended the call. My thumb hovered over the screen. June 12th, 9:32 a.m. The sky was a violent, impossible blue. It was a cloudless, dazzling, mockingly flawless canopy stretched over the worst day of my life. I dialed again. Not my father this time, my mother, then my brother Daniel, then my sister Emily. 8 times. 8 times I listened to the digitized, cheerful voices of the people who shared my DNA, the people who were supposed to be the architects of my safety. 8 times I listened to the void where their love was supposed to be. I had 15 tickets in my pocket. 15. I ran my thumb over the edge of the perforated cardstock. They were sharp enough to cut skin. I reserved a row, a literal phalanx of seats for the Taylor clan, my parents, my siblings, my grandmother, aunts, uncles, cousins. I had even reserved 2 extra seats, just in case someone brought a friend, just in case the universe decided to be generous. I was 29 years old. I was in the top 10% of my class at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. I knew the name of every bone in the human body, the intricate pathways of the nervous system, the delicate chemistry required to keep a heart beating. But I was so stupid. I was so breathtakingly ignorant that I thought blood meant something. I thought blood was a binding contract. Dr. Whitfield found me 15 minutes later. I was in the restroom, the fluorescent lights humming overhead, vibrating against the white tile. I was staring at myself in the mirror, but I couldn't see my face. I could only see the water running from the faucet, swirling down the drain. Jessica? Her voice was soft, too soft. It was the voice you use for a patient who has just received a terminal diagnosis. Jessica, what is wrong? You need to line up. I couldn't speak. The words were there, lodged in my throat like a stone, but I couldn't push them past my teeth. I just held out the phone. I showed her the call log, a red list of failures, a digital monument to my insignificance. She didn't ask questions. She didn't offer platitudes. She just handed me a tissue and looked me dead in the eye. The folks who show up for you are your true family, she said. The words hung in the sterile air between us. Sometimes that has nothing to do with genetics. I didn't believe her then. I wanted to, but the ache in my chest was too specific, too ancient. It was the ache of a child waiting by the window for a car that never pulls into the driveway. Walking across that stage felt like moving underwater. When they called the name Jessica Taylor Walker, I waited. For a microsecond, my body tensed, bracing for the sound I had heard for every other student, the air horns, the whistles, the shouted names. but there was only a polite ripple of applause. The sound of strangers clapping because it is socially required. And beneath that, the hollow echo of my own heels striking the wood of the stage. Click, click, click. I shook the dean's hand. He leaned in, his cologne thick and musky. Congratulations, Dr. Walker. You should be quite proud. I smiled. I know I smiled, because my facial muscles contracted. I am a student of anatomy. I know how to mechanize a smile. I nodded. I took the diploma. I walked back to my seat. I sat there for 2 hours. I watched 300 other people be loved. I watched Marcus Chen, a boy who barely passed his anatomy finals, get a standing ovation from 14 people. I counted them, 14. I saw his grandmother, a tiny woman who had flown all the way from Taiwan, weeping into a handkerchief. I sat in my chair in my heavy doctoral robes, and I felt my heart turning into something hard, something calcified. When we poured out into the parking lot, the sun was blinding. Sophie, a girl I had shared a cadaver with in my first year, grabbed my arm. "Hey," she said, squinting at me. "You look like you saw a ghost." I looked at her. I looked at her parents standing behind her, beaming, holding bouquets of lilies that smelled like a funeral. "Family emergency," I lied. The lie tasted like copper. They couldn't make it. "Oh my God, that's dreadful," she said, and her face collapsed into genuine pity. "Come to lunch with us. My grandma made way too much food. Seriously, she'll be offended if we don't bring strays." The kindness of a stranger is a dangerous thing when you are brittle. It almost broke me. I declined, gently. I told her I had to manage the crisis. I sat in my car for exactly 5 minutes before I turned the key. I allowed myself to come apart. I sobbed until my vision blurred, until the pressure behind my eyes was a throbbing headache. Then I flipped down the visor mirror. I wiped the mascara from my cheeks. I fixed my hood. I knew where they were. Denial is a heavy thing to carry. It requires constant maintenance. You have to wake up every morning and consciously decide not to see the patterns that define your life. But as I drove down the familiar highway toward Bethesda, passing the monuments of my childhood, I felt the denial crumbling. It fell away like ice cracking in the spring thaw. I drove past the elementary school where I won the spelling bee the day my mother threw away my trophy because she was cleaning. I drove past the orthodontist's office where I got my braces off alone because Emily was crying about a boy 2 streets over. 26 years. 26 years of being an afterthought. 26 years of accepting crumbs and telling myself it was a feast. The driveway was full. That was the first thing that hit me. The visual confirmation of what I already knew but hadn't emotionally accepted. My parents' driveway, my aunt's minivan, my brother's sports car. They were all there. I parked on the street. I didn't take off my regalia. I walked up the driveway in my doctoral gown, the velvet heavy on my shoulders, the hood swinging against my back. I walked around to the side gate. I could hear them before I saw them. The clink of glass, the murmur of conversation, laughter. I pushed open the gate. They were in the backyard. All of them. Every single person I had invited to the auditorium was standing on the patio. There were streamers. There was a cake. There were bottles of champagne sweating in silver buckets. And in the center of it all was Emily. My younger sister was holding out her hand, catching the sunlight on a diamond ring. She was glowing. She was the sun, and my family were the planets, orbiting her, helpless against her gravity. "Jessica!" My mother saw me first. She had a champagne flute raised halfway to her lips. She froze. "You're here! Come and celebrate with us! Emily is getting married!" The air left the yard. One by one, heads turned. My father, Daniel, Aunt Carol.
They looked at me, standing there in the full regalia of a doctor of medicine, looking like a wizard who had stumbled into a casual garden party.
I saw the realization hit them in waves. My father's face went slack. Daniel took a long, nervous sip of his beer. Emily just rolled her eyes. "Oh, honey," my mother said. She set the glass down. She started walking toward me with that smile, that terrible, patronizing smile she used when I was being difficult. "We were about to call you. Chris proposed last night, unexpectedly, and Emily wanted everyone together this morning to celebrate. We knew you'd understand." She reached out to touch my arm. "Graduation ceremonies are always so long and so boring. And you didn't really need us there. You're always so independent." I looked at the streamers. I looked at the cake. I looked at my grandmother, who was suddenly very interested in the pattern of the tablecloth. Independent? I repeated. The word felt foreign. "Yes," my mother said, gaining confidence. "We knew you'd be fine." The truth was, some part of me had expected this. When I was 14, I won the state science fair. We skipped the awards dinner to go to Emily's dance recital. When I got into Hopkins on a full scholarship, my parents threw a Sweet 16 party for Emily the same weekend. "Later," they said. "We'll celebrate you later." Later is a place that doesn't exist. I said, "You're right." My voice was very quiet. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I felt a sudden, terrifying clarity. I am independent. Thank you for reminding me. I turned around. "Jessica, don't be dramatic," my mother called out. Her voice had an edge now. "Don't ruin Emily's day." I didn't look back. I walked down the driveway, the velvet of my gown swishing softly against my ankles. I got into my car. I drove away. And I never went back. The next morning, I went to the courthouse. It is shockingly easy to erase a person. It's just paperwork. Forms, fees, a board clerk, a judge who signs a document without looking up from his coffee. Jessica Taylor ceased to exist on a Tuesday. In her place stood Dr. Jessica Walker. I chose the name carefully. Walker. One who walks. One who keeps moving. I had already matched for my residency in emergency medicine, but I had planned to stay in the area, maybe commute to Boston. Instead, I accelerated everything. I scrubbed my existence. I changed my phone number. I deleted every social media account. I routed my mail to a P.O. box in a town 3 hours away. I told exactly one person, Dr. Whitfield. "Are you sure about this?" she asked me, sitting in her office, surrounded by shelves of medical texts. I told her, "They didn't notice me when I was there. Let's see how long it takes them to notice I'm gone." The answer was 2 months. 2 months. 60 days before my brother Daniel sent an email to my old university address, which I had forwarded to a burner account. "Mom is upset. She says you aren't returning her calls. Can you just apologize so we can move on? Emily is stressed about the wedding planning and she doesn't need your drama." I deleted it. October brought a voicemail from my father on the hospital's general line. He sounded annoyed, baffled. "Jessica, the silent treatment is ridiculous. Your mother is sick with worry. Call home." I instructed the admin to tell him that no one named Jessica Taylor worked there. It wasn't a lie. By December, the silence was total, and it was exquisite. I was working 90-hour weeks.
I was exhausted, smelling of antiseptic and coffee, my hands chapped from scrubbing. But for the first time in my life, the space in my head was my own. I wasn't waiting for approval that would never come. I wasn't shrinking myself to fit into the corners of a room dominated by my sister. I spent Christmas that year with 3 other residents. We were the island of misfit toys. We ordered Thai food that was too spicy, drank cheap wine, and watched terrible movies. We laughed until our sides ached. It was the best holiday of my life. For a year and a half, I was a ghost to them. Then, on a Tuesday in March, my grandmother Margaret died. I found out via a Google alert I had set up. Margaret Taylor, obituary. I sat in the residence lounge staring at the screen. The obituary listed their survivors. Granddaughters, Emily Taylor Mitchell and Jessica Taylor. A fiction. A ghost. I thought about going to the funeral. I sat with the idea for an hour, turning it over in my hands like a heavy stone. My grandmother had been kind, in the way a person is kind to a stray dog. She slips me money. She smiled at me. But she was there on the patio. She sat in that chair, drinking champagne, celebrating an engagement while I walked across the stage alone. She had made a choice. I didn't go. They hired a private investigator. I found out because a nurse mentioned it, laughing. Some guy was asking about a Dr. Taylor. Can you imagine being so bad at keeping in touch your family hires a PI? I didn't laugh. I locked down my files. I warned security. But you can't hide forever when your name is on a medical license. They found me 8 months later, a Saturday. I had just finished a 12-hour shift. My eyes felt like they were filled with sand. I walked into the lobby of my apartment building in Cambridge, holding a lukewarm coffee, dreaming of sleep. And there they were. My mother looked smaller. The lines around her mouth were etched deep, like cracks in dry earth. My father stood beside her, looking gray and defeated. For a second, just a split second, my heart lurched. That old, treacherous instinct to comfort them, to fix it. "Jessica?" my mother said. Her voice wasn't warm, it was accusatory. "We've been waiting for 2 hours. The doorman wouldn't let us up." "Good," I said. My voice surprised me. It was steady, cold. "He's doing his job." "Jessica, stop this," Karen Taylor snapped. She flinched, as if I'd slapped her. "This has gone on long enough. We are your parents. You can't just disappear." "Actually, I can. It's Dr. Walker now." My father's face flushed a deep, unhealthy red. "What kind of nonsense is that? Your name is Taylor. That is our name." "Not anymore. I had it legally changed right after graduation. You remember graduation, right? The day you skipped for a party?" The silence that followed was thick. It had mass. "We didn't skip it," my mother finally said, her voice trembling with righteous indignation. "We had a disagreement on timing. Emily needed us. It was a judgment call, Jessica. You have always been so self-sufficient. We knew you'd be okay." We knew you'd be okay. The epitaph of my childhood. I was okay. I'm better than okay. I'm great. Because I'm not spending every waking second begging to be seen by the people who are supposed to love me. "We love you," my father shouted. It echoed in the lobby. "We're your daughter. I was your daughter for 29 years. I stepped forward. The anger finally broke loose, hot and bright. "I was your daughter who got straight A's. I was your daughter who worked 3 jobs because you spent my college fund on Emily's second DUI. I was the daughter sitting in the waiting room while you went to her therapy, her recitals, her crisis. I was there, and you looked right through me." My mother started to cry. Big, dramatic, heaving sobs. It was a performance I knew well. "That isn't fair. Emily struggled. She needed help. And what if I had struggled? If I had needed help, would you have seen me then? Or would you have told me to be quiet because Emily was having a bad day? They didn't answer. They couldn't. I wanted you at my graduation, I whispered. Not because I needed you to hold my hand, but because I wanted to believe I mattered to you. Come home, my father said, trying to regain control. Emily is pregnant. She wants the whole family there for Easter. I laughed, a sharp barking sound. Even now, even after 3 years of silence, your pitch is about Emily. Tell her congratulations. Tell her she'll have to celebrate without me, just like I did. I walked to the elevator. My mother grabbed my arm. Her grip was desperate, her nails digging into my skin. Jess, please, we're your family. Doesn't that mean anything? I looked at her hand. I looked at the wedding ring she had worn my entire life. It meant everything to me. That was the problem. It meant everything to me, and it meant nothing to you. I pulled my arm free. You taught me that love is conditional. You taught me that showing up is optional. I'm just following your example. I got in the elevator. The doors slid shut. The last thing I saw was my mother weeping into my father's coat, and my father looking at the floor, unable to watch me leave. I didn't just survive after that. I thrived. I finished my residency. I took a fellowship in trauma surgery at Boston Medical. I met a man named Ethan. Ethan was a medical device engineer. He was quiet, steady, and kind. The kind of man who remembers how you take your coffee. The kind of man who, when he says he will be somewhere, is there 5 minutes early. After a lifetime of chasing ghosts, Ethan's solidity felt like a miracle. He proposed on a hiking trail in New Hampshire. He was sweating, I was covered in bug spray, and it was perfect. We got married in a winery. 25 guests, all friends. Ethan's parents flew in from California. His mother hugged me so hard, my ribs creaked. Thank you for making him so happy, she whispered in my ear.
I didn't invite a single person from Maryland. Emily found out, of course. Facebook is a disease. She sent an email. I can't believe you got married without telling us. Mom has been in bed for 3 days. You have torn this family apart, Jessica. And for what? Because we missed one ceremony? Normal people forgive. You need help. I read it to Ethan. We were sitting in our home office. He took my hand. She thinks it's about the graduation, he said, shaking his head. She still thinks it's about one day. They all do, I said. If they admitted it was a lifetime of neglect, they'd have to look at themselves in the mirror, and they can't do that. Do you want to reply? No, I said. I have nothing to say to them. 2 years later, the letter arrived. It was on heavy cream-colored stationery. A law firm in Bethesda. Robert Taylor, deceased. Cardiac arrest. I sat on the floor of my kitchen. My father was dead. He was 67. I didn't feel grief. Not the way you're supposed to. I felt a hollow ache. I mourned the father I never had. I mourned the possibility of him ever waking up, ever standing up for me. That door was closed now, cemented shut. The letter said I was named in the will. I went to the reading. I didn't want to, but I needed to see it finished. The conference room smelled like lemon polish and dust. My mother was there. She looked like a specter. Emily was there, holding a toddler, looking furious. They saw me walk in. My mother made a sound, a choked, desperate noise, and started to stand. I held up a hand. I'm here for the reading, nothing else. The lawyer, a man who clearly wanted to be anywhere else, began. My mother got the house, the savings, Daniel got the cars, Emily got the jewelry, the furniture, a trust for the baby. And to my daughter Jessica, the lawyer read, I leave the Rehoboth Beach house and its contents without condition. The room stopped breathing.
The beach house. It was a small, weathered cottage on the coast. It was the only place where my father and I had ever been alone. Before Emily's anxiety took over, before the drama consumed the house, he used to take me there to fish. Just us. "That's impossible!" Emily shrieked. "Dad promised that house to the grandkids. We discussed it." "The will is clear," the lawyer said. He slid a thick envelope across the mahogany table toward me. "And he left this letter for Jessica's eyes only."
I took the envelope. I put it in my purse. "She abandoned this family." Emily was standing now, face red. "She didn't come to his funeral. She doesn't deserve a damn thing." I stood up. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. I saw the entitlement, the rage, the total lack of self-awareness. "You're right," I said calmly. "I didn't come to the funeral, just like you didn't come to my graduation, just like you didn't come to my wedding." I turned to the door. "The difference is, I stopped expecting you to show up a long time ago." I walked out. I could hear my mother wailing my name, but it sounded like it was coming from underwater. I drove to the nearest beach parking lot to read the letter. The ocean was gray, churning against the sand. "Jessica, if you are reading this, I am gone, and I never found the guts to say this to your face. I knew. I always knew what your mother was doing. I knew how we pushed you aside for Emily. I told myself I was keeping the peace. I told myself you were strong enough to handle it. But that was a lie. I was a coward. I wanted to go to your graduation. I had my keys in my hand that morning. But your mother, she was so frantic about the party, and I let her make the choice for me. The beach house is yours, because those weekends were the only time I felt like a decent father. I should have fought harder for you. I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know that I saw you, even when I acted like I didn't. Build a life full of people who show up for you. You deserve nothing less. Love, Dad." I cried then. I cried for the man who saw the drowning and did nothing but watch. I cried because he knew. He wasn't oblivious. He was just weak. And somehow, that was worse. But he gave me the house. Ethan and I spent the next 2 years restoring it. We stripped the wallpaper, we painted the deck, we turned it into a sanctuary. One afternoon, cleaning out the garage, I found a tackle box. Inside, tucked in a waterproof bag, were photos. Not family photos. Photos of me. Me holding a flounder, me asleep in a deck chair, me and him silhouetted against a sunset. He had kept a secret album, a record of the daughter he loved but couldn't protect. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough to make up for the years of silence, but it was something. We have a daughter now. Her name is Margaret. She is 9 years old, she is bright and loud, and she takes up space. We make sure she takes up space. My mother died 4 years after my father. I paid for her nursing home, a nice one, private room, garden view. I made sure she had everything she needed, but I never visited. People told me I was cold. A psychiatrist once told me I was punishing myself by holding on to the grudge. But it isn't a grudge. A grudge is something you hold against someone you hope will change. I have no hope. Walking away wasn't punishment. It was protection. It was an act of survival. My daughter asked me recently why she has a different last name than her cousins on Ethan's side. I told her the truth. I told her that I used to have a family that forgot how to love me, so I had to go find people who remembered. What if they learned, she asked, with that innocent optimism of a child. What if they learned how to love you? I looked at her. I looked at the ocean visible through the window of the house my father left me. I told her, some doors are locked for a reason, not because we hate the people on the other side,
but because we love ourselves enough not to walk back into the fire. She accepted that. I am 44 years old. I am Dr. Walker. I am a mother. I am a wife. I am seen. I sometimes wonder who I would be if I had stayed, if I had swallowed the hurt that day in the parking lot, if I had walked into that engagement party and smiled and eaten the cake. I think I would have disappeared completely. I think I would have eroded grain by grain until there was nothing left but a shadow. They forgot me, so I forgot them. And in the silence of that forgetting, I finally heard my own voice. I stopped waiting to be chosen. I chose myself. And that has made all the difference.